Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's Wednesday afternoon. Gorilla Sports Off Ice. I'm Jesse Montano. You're going to be joined by Meghan Angley here in just a few moments. Got a fun show for you guys today. We're going to be looking back on some history, but starting with some conversation around this decor the Colorado Avalanche have assembled and maybe where they fit in the NHL's list of decors. But as always, guys, want to start by reminding you about our great friends over at Trusted American Mortgage. Head on over to trustedamerican.com right now. They want to help you lower your interest rate, get a better monthly payment. And hey, if you act right now, maybe they can help you skip a couple payments here for the next few months. Go to trustedamerican.com right now. See how much money they can help you start saving today. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody, welcome in. It's Wednesday, hump day here at Gorilla Sports. Megan helped me out yesterday. Let us slide the show to today. I had to go down and help my folks out at something for their small business. But Megan, how you doing today? How you doing on this Wednesday?
Oh, I'm in such a good mood.
Good. We've got a fun show. I'm looking forward to getting into this one. It really kind of started as, we should do this for a show. We should do this for a show. When we realized that neither of them were probably a full hour's worth of conversation.
Oh, in hindsight,
we
I
should have
think
done
they are
2 shows. But we pushed them together. The Avs unveiled their 30th anniversary logo for this coming season. So you and I in the back half of this show here today are going to just revisit what some of our favorite moments are in Avs history. We'd love to hear from you guys in the chat once we get to that part of the conversation about some of your moments. And then I'm sure Chloe's just going to have a field day with chopping this up and getting people's thoughts as well. Yes, we will start here. I got 2 bits of business to get to before we get into the first part of our conversation for today. And yes, vaguely noticed it immediately. You guys, I don't know if this podcast understands how lucky it is to have a listener like Vaguely.
Oh,
Like, all the folks, when I say this podcast, I don't mean just you and me or John or Chloe. I mean, everyone who's a part of this every time that we jump in.
yes.
Vaguely takes care of us, folks. And he was just tired of my language. So he has very graciously donated a swear jar. We have the Wedgwood back behind Megan as well. Yep, there we go.
Oh, I guess I didn't
Right
do
there.
that.
No, yeah. The Wedgwood that is it's a doorstop. It's a cat. And then we have the new swear jar that I've already talked with the folks from the Going Deep pod. They will be participating as well in the swear jar. So it's just going to live on set. And I'm assuming by the end of each season, it's going to be pretty full. So
Yeah, honestly, too, if you guys want to weigh in on what it should be donated for at the end, we haven't locked ourselves into
anything like that.
philanthropic cause.
Now, it was suggested by the Going Deep folks, which I won't lie, I wasn't interested. What if we just donated it to ourselves and took ourselves out for, some drinks at the end of the season? I don't know. To Megan's point, we could use a better suggestion from you folks, a better cause. Denver Women's Sports Collective, early clubhouse leader, only charity in the chat so far.
Yeah,
I like it. So we'll go throughout the season and at the end of the year we'll take the money and we'll do something with it. But vaguely, Megan was here, Chloe was here when this arrived the other day. This is just cute as hell.
Oh, it's adorable.
It's adorable. It's got some nice 3D. As you can, I don't know if you can see when I turn to the side. It's not just printed on there. That is, it's 3D, and we just love it. It's gonna live right here next to me. We don't think Megan's gonna need it as much as I will.
Shout out to Jackie Moon and the pyramid call out, because we have not abandoned the pyramid.
We have not.
And the funds raised to make it better.
It was, we actually had our first pre-production meeting for the coming Avalanche season. And the pyramid was brought up in the official pre-production meeting.
I've heard there's some magnet work happening behind
there
the
is,
scenes. So
the magnets were finally loaded up on at my house.
that's perfect.
Now, for the surprise that I teased to Megan before we went on air. The Shanghai Dragons of the KHL, formerly Kulon Red Star, are China's only pro hockey team in any of the major leagues. It's the only Chinese team in the KHL, and they hired a new coach this morning, Megan, and this right here was how they announced who it was.
В каждом живет ребенок, который мечтает о легендарных приключениях. А в каждой легенде есть великий учитель, у которого за плечами работа с большими героями. И теперь мастер здесь, чтобы построить новую команду с новым именем. Жерар Галан.
The early leader for video of the year in hockey circles.
That just set a new standard for how it should be done.
Seriously.
The glowing eyes.
Yeah.
Did Gallant sign off on that? Like, you know what? Make them brighter.
So that was something that was going through my head this morning when I was watching for the first time. I was like, I'd love to know if this is also the first time Gerard Gallant is seeing this video. Or did they run it by him or what? He definitely seems like more of like a traditional type guy. I'd love to know what he thought of that.
No, I'd love to know too, but it's incredible. And
the master has arrived.
It puts my smoke machines to shame. All right. I want glowing eyes and a dragon.
We didn't have enough glowing eyes or Jaromir Jagr dressed as a samurai in your video. You're totally right. But I had to kick off the show with that because what a piece of content from the Shanghai Dragons.
No, that's doing numbers online. I've been seeing it on my timeline. I just had not yet stopped to watch the video yet. Yeah. So I see the hype now.
And I mean, impressive animation.
Yeah.
You know, like it was
it's a great hype video.
It was a great hype video for Gerard Gallant. But I just had to kick things off today with that because I don't know how anybody tops that today in hockey on social media.
I just think hockey should lean into a little bit of that. I think there are, there's a time and a place to be theatrical.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect timing, right? They're rebranding. They've got a new name, a new coach with NHL experience. They're calling him the master has arrived. I love it. It's just beautiful.
Well, and really like them making that hire. It's like, oh, the Shanghai Dragons are serious about winning this year.
Yeah.
They're on a Gargan Cup trajectory here. So that was getting the fun stuff out of the way.
Perfect.
Well, all of this is going to be fun. Megan,
Chloe, can you edit Megan riding a dragon? I bet she can.
Yeah, but if she can't, Andy definitely can. I believe in Andy for sure. All right. Well, we do have a where we're starting the show today is we're going to talk about the defense. And I know we have done our defensive preview, but Megan, it was Thomas Hickey last week, went on NHL Network and had this to say.
All hail Kale. Number one. Get him, Hicks.
This was the only one that was, should I say, easy for me. You've got the star power. You talk about getting out of your zone. Well, you got a cheat code in breakouts when it comes to Gerard, Taves, and Makar. And Taves, we've talked about how underrated he is, but that's one of the best D pairs, maybe the best D pair in the world. But then you add to that a Brent Burns and all the experience that he has, the ability to get more and more pucks through like you need it. And in Sam Belinsky, we're talking about a guy who's not Cale Makar light, but you see what he's able to do with the ice time that he gets, and it's extremely impressive. I just love the mix that they have, and Manson's one of these big, strong bodies. He's tough to play against. They've got depth. They can move the puck. They can all defend. Colorado, in my mind, has the best back end in the NHL.
Yeah, I think the top four speak for themselves, and you've done a great job of presenting all that. Brent Burns was a wonderful transaction for me. I'm surprised they're able to button him down for what they did, because I think this guy's going to be, he gives you a very viable third pair. I think he's going to be brilliant.
You and I talked about it when the Avs added Brent Burns. I said I think this gives them one of the best 1 through 6 in the NHL. And maybe the only part that I disagree with Thomas Hickey on there is I do refer to Sam Malinsky as Cale Makar light. You can see a lot of the shades of Cale's game that he tries to replicate in there. We're going to get all kinds of into it. But not only do I see where Thomas Hickey's coming from, face value, I tend to agree with him. I think this is the best 1 through 6 in the NHL.
Well, fortunately for you, we don't have to operate just off face value alone. I have compiled analytics using Natural Stat Trick to key in on the defensive metrics more specifically, because as we know, analytics 1 are a bit imperfect. You have to be very subjective in how you utilize them, and they tend to have an offensive slant. Even numbers that are generally good at predicting just the overall efficacy of a team, like Corsi for percentage, have an offensive slant. So I keyed in on Corsi against, shots against, scoring chances against, high danger chances against, and expected goals against, and made a composite score across the league over this last season of how teams ranked in terms of allowing the fewest possession events against. And unsurprisingly to me, though maybe the rest of the league needs to be put on notice, the Colorado Avalanche and their backend in particular are more than just an offensive juggernaut, though they are a catalyst in offense for the Colorado Avalanche and also a source of a lot of their offense. They do not completely punt on the defensive details. And I built on to this composite score. I'll go into that in a second, but they rank 3rd in the league over the regular season based upon what I just outlined. And Florida comes in at 1, LA comes in at number 2. I say that because to the eye test, you can understand how those 3 teams are coming in highly ranked because LA regarded as a strong defensive team. And here's where it gets tricky too. This is measuring team defense. And I tried to pull out the goaltending aspect of this by not actually tallying goals against. And I instead created a separate category just to have it as a frame of reference for that goal differential between actual goals against and expected goals against and the save percentage of the team.
I appreciate that you did that, because when you start off by saying analytics are imperfect, and that's one of the areas where I do get frustrated with some of the times you hear people talk about that. It's like, okay, yeah, but if you're using that metric, you're completely disregarding what was happening in net, things like. So I'm glad to hear that you separated that out.
So I have it here on hand too to just kind of quickly reference teams that also had steady goaltending. And so there are some teams that in this list, like Winnipeg, who had really great goaltending in the regular season, that are still highly ranked, but with the goaltending aspect removed from that composite score, they come in a little bit lower. But it's still worth mentioning the teams that had a positive goal differential overall, and that's all of the top 5 teams, to put that into perspective. I built onto this a little bit more just in an experimental way, because I also wanted to account for hits per 60, blocks per 60, but I didn't want to blindly reward hits and blocks, because the context of those hits and blocks could point to a team who is struggling to regain possession.
Doesn't have the puck.
And so in this separate formula, I also accounted for Corsi for percentage at 5v5. And it's also worth noting all of this is at 5v5.
I also need to point out that we agreed to talk about this topic yesterday.
I haven't even gotten to the penalty kill yet. So I created a differential from Corsi for percentages at 5v5 that are at 50 or above, and I rewarded teams that are at 50 or above with respect to hits, blocks per 60, and I penalized teams that were below 50 in Corsi for percentage. And this created a new composite that I kind of evaluate as an effort or buy-in statistic, basically. Like when you have a strong puck possession team that is also hitting and blocking, that points to me a well-rounded team that's bought in. And so Florida comes in very highly when I add this new composite score. LA and Colorado, though, still the 2 and the 3 with respect to this. And I added one more extension of this to try and account for the strength of a team's penalty kill, because I think that is another great reflection and extension of the defense. Though again, all of this still is pointing to team defense, goaltending, and then a little bit of the defensive group on the whole. So it's still imperfect, and what I struggled with in playing around with some of these different formulas is how to assign value to each of these metrics, because I did want the penalty kill, and basically where the team finished at the end of the year, I rewarded teams for being closer to 100% on the kill. More is how that ended up working out. And so it's not perfect in the weight that I assigned each of these metrics, but it still paints an intriguing picture. You still have Florida at the top, which is why I'll come right out and say it. I think I would have Florida in my number one going into next year for the strongest defensive groups. But Colorado would be my easy number two. And I'll justify it in a second, but their regular season numbers are strong. Obviously, I also did this with playoff numbers. And what's tricky too is over an 82 game season, it's a level playing field. Though I will say what makes that a little tricky is for games outside of regulation, because for more minutes played in an 82 game season, there's more opportunity to make mistakes and have possession events again. So that's part of consideration in the statistics too. So with the playoffs, teams like Colorado that only played 7 games and ultimately fewer minutes had less opportunity to make mistakes. And that's a caveat that's worth mentioning, because Colorado comes in at number one for this same formula, just with like the playoff numbers. Carolina at 2, Ottawa at 3, Florida at 4. Obviously, seeing Carolina and Ottawa, teams that did not necessarily have the postseason that they hoped, feels a little weird, but I'll get to Carolina in a second, because they had strong defensive numbers in the regular season and continue to have strong defensive numbers in the postseason. It's important, though, to measure games played, minutes played, and account for more opportunity to make mistakes. All that being said, everything that we knew to be frustrating and true about this playoff series is just emphasized in seeing the strength of their defense across the regular season and even within the Dallas series. And all of this too points me back to, though, Florida being rightfully at number one in my list of best decors going into next year. And it's because they've remained pretty intact going into next year with the same core that brought them so much success. And I believe them to be a really balanced group. They've got Gustav Forsling at the top, just the brains of this operation, such a high IQ player who uses his reads to manage his lanes and gap up on his guys in such an efficient way that he is stifling defensively. And then you've got a little bit of the puck skill represented in Ekblad, though I think he's also still a reliable defender. And the addition of Seth Jones is just adding to the offensive bottom line and puck skill and giving you another option to QB that power play and just balance then how you're deploying these defensemen, because Nico Mikkola, a lot of speed and physicality, and then some experience vets. I think the biggest difference is losing Nate Schmidt, but they replace him with Jeff Petrie, who we talked about in our division preview. So all that to say, this is a team that's still pretty intact with some of the best numbers going into next year. Low possession events against and their Corsi against per game as of last year. A strong puck possession team, though. They received good, decent goaltending. And you look at the playoff contributions from the back end, they combined for 18 goals, tied for 5th most by a defenseman on a Stanley Cup winning team. That's where, in pointing back to the offensive additions of players like Seth Jones and Aaron Ekblad are especially important, but it's coupled with the strong strength of defense and players like Gustav Forsling that I find the offensive upside might be a bit moderate past their top puck-moving, puck-skill defenders, but they're so strong defensively. The only thing is a question around their depth outside of that top 6, right? And that's the same question, though, I have for the Colorado Avalanche is you're one injury away from Keaton Middleton being a regular in the lineup, and in a 7-game series, that feels a lot less comfortable. And so I have the same question around Florida's depth going into next year outside of this group 1 through 6, but it's very sound altogether.
I like the Avs decor better than Florida's, but I think part of what you're talking about, let me say this. I'm so curious to see a full season of Seth Jones in Florida. He has been such an interesting player to me to watch his career develop. He's obviously, he's a very strong defender. He was drafted very high, always projected as that number one. We talked about in our Pacific Division previews, need to have that number one. And he just never really got there, really kind of underwhelmed. And then he got to Florida and it just seemed like it clicked. And that's where I was going to go. I do wonder how much of what you're talking about, because I agree. The balance of this back end, I love Aaron Ekblad as a player.
I love Gustav Forsling.
Do you? Yeah.
I do.
I mean, I really like the makeup of that group. And I'm going to try to say this the right way. I do wonder how much of that Florida decor benefits from the way that team plays and the commitment to team defense.
1,000%.
As where when I look at this Avs decor, when the Avs have been at their most elite in the last, say, since Cale Makar got into the league, it's, for me, because the defense sets the tone, sets the pace. Like you said, there's a lot of folks, I think maybe on the outside, who aren't around this team every day, who look at the Avs back end as like, oh, they're an offensive juggernaut, I think was the term that you used. But it's the way that their back end controls play, controls the breakouts, gets them in position to play they want to play. They're the ones who transition from defense to offense so quickly and are so efficient at, I've talked about it on the show before. Corey Masisak laughs all the time. And he actually was keeping a running tally last year. And I should reach out to him and see if he got a final number. But the amount of times that a high danger chance was forming for the opposition, and before they get a shot off, a high danger chance took place for the Avs going the other way. And just that the Avs decor's ability to defend well and immediately turn that into offense is the identity of this Colorado Avalanche team. And so that, I without having done all of the pouring over all the numbers that you have, I would tend to agree that for me, it's probably Colorado and Florida. I think Colorado's defense defines more of who Colorado's identity is, as where Florida's decor is an outstanding product of the identity of that team. Does that make sense the way I just said that?
No, it does. And this came up with respect to a few other teams. For example, the LA Kings.
I was going to say LA is probably a great example.
They're highly ranked in the defensive metrics, which, as I mentioned, cover the whole team. And I find them to be very versatile and strong defensively down the middle. And when I look at their back end last year, obviously Brandt Clarke, a player who had kind of a breakout year on their back end, I still am not sure how much of this can be credited to just Doughty and Brandt Clarke. And looking to, like we talked a little bit, they got a bit older. I think a lot of the strong defense of the LA Kings, one, they had an excellent year from Darcy Kemper in net in the regular season. Though, again, I tried to separate that from the composite score. It's still worth noting. And they have such great two-way players down the middle that it's worth talking about this because similarly, I'm struggling with Washington. This came in Thomas Hickey's list, and their defensive numbers are low. They did have a positive goal differential. They were getting great goaltending from both the goaltenders, and they're an intriguing team. They're getting lots of contributions from the back end from Chychrun, but outside of him, it completely falls off. But they're still decent in transition and very fast, very quick. And so they are not a source of offense, but they're a catalyst. And so they help to drive good possession numbers and a strong goal for percentage in the regular season for the forward group, in part because of what they were doing to at least move play in transition on the attack, but they weren't necessarily a part of it. And that's another thing worth noting is the Colorado Avalanche aren't just a catalyst for offense because they are great in breaking out the puck and moving play north. But they're also great at being a part of the offensive bottom line. They can get involved and activate, and it's bigger than just Cale Makar and Devon Toews. I love that you started off the show with the Malinsky shout out because I was going to get there eventually. In talking about this Avalanche team, a top 3 team and some of the fewest Corsi against events per game. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I was going to cut you off. So I thank you for apologizing to me for interrupting you. I was going to say two things. One, I think the Avs decor gets involved more efficiently than any other, just purely to the eye test. Watching, we watch them every night. We see them play every team twice. I have not seen another team whose decor gets as effectively involved in the offensive rush as the Avalanche. It's to the point that at times you and I have asked defensemen, or we've even asked Cale Makar, like, how much do you talk to other guys about the way that you get involved, the way that you find soft spots in the offensive zone, knowing when, how many times do we see Cale Makar in on a 2-on-1, Devon Taves leading a 3-on-1 rush. Like, we've talked to him, like, is that something that you guys talk about, share secrets? It's so efficient. Like you said, it's not just Cale Makar, but you have to imagine it's the Cale Makar effect. Other guys on this D-core see the way that he activates, and there's an easy example to follow, I guess, is the point that I'm trying to make on that, where he's so good at it and it's rubbed off on the rest of this D-core.
There's a lot of trust in the 5-man unit too, that no matter the players on the ice, there is a trust that whoever is playing point can be a part of the play. And there's trust then in the forwards on the ice to anticipate that because of everything that you're saying. And I think it starts with Makar and Taves, who lead by example, because it's not just what they do in the offensive zone. It starts in their back end with a good breakout and good play in transition. And they help each other with this too. Like single-handedly, Makar was suffocated in the Dallas series, but in leaning on a player like Taves, who is the perfect complement, they're able to better move the puck out of their own end. And it's very intelligent the way that they go about this. And so I was just talking about how the Florida Panthers have a pretty good balance, but I believe at least 1 through 5, I'll let people have a question mark around 6 for Colorado's D-core, but I'll get to that in a second because I agree with you. I think 1 through 6, this is still a very balanced D-core. And just keying in on the defensive numbers, because I saw people react to Thomas Hickey's list with Avs at number 1 negatively. Like, it's just because of Cale Makar. And I'm getting so sick and tired, 1, of Cale Makar being minimized because he's so offensively gifted, and 2, this being taken out on the whole of the back end just because they're all pretty offensively gifted with Makar leading the way, but they're not punting on the defensive details. As I said, top 3 in Corsi against events in allowing the fewest per game, 5v5 regular season, top 3 puck possession team, and a good positive differential for goals against. That is where some of the goaltending between Blackwood, Wedgwood coming into play also helped these overall numbers. The only area where I really see for the Avs to improve is in their high danger chances allowed. Over the course of the regular season, it was still the top 10 fewest, but it kind of came in a little higher compared to some of these other teams who fared well in the defensive numbers. But we all know the offensive numbers, right? We know the 30-goal Cale Makar season that he's had and just continues to increase his points total every year. But when you look at the strong overall possession and transition game, and you look at that, I saw vaguely refer to it as grit per 60. That's the blocks per 60, hits per 60. This is a team that's very bought in across the board. And it's leading me to my Malinsky point here in a second, because I think people understand what Taves and Makar are, and they can sometimes be reductive in how they talk about it. It's just offensively gifted players.
Which I mean,
it's annoying. You can talk about it.
Well, it's more confused me than anything. And this goes back to the 22 run. And you and I think, have talked about it on this show before. I remember when Stanley Cup Final Media Day came to town. And just, getting our first real chance of talking with all the national guys and all the guys from out of state and all the reporters who came in from other markets to cover, whether it be just media day or the cup final in general. And there really was this, I heard so much talk about it, not only in conversations that I was having, with the guys and gals who were coming in, from out of state media, but on talk shows. I remember hearing it on NHL Network in the atrium of Ball Arena, as we're waiting for the players. Oh, can Colorado's defense hold up against Tampa Bay? They're so top heavy. They're so offensively minded. Can they keep the puck out of their own, end long enough? And I just remember sitting there like, oh, damn. So you guys didn't watch any of the first 3 rounds that these guys played, because their team defense and their commitments 1 through 6 from players, Cale Makar blocking shots, killing penalties, Devontae. I mean, like, their defensive numbers are so strong. It's like, this isn't even an opinion. Oh, Cale Makar's just offensive. It's like, that's just objectively wrong. His defensive numbers, him and Devon Taves' defensive numbers are so rock solid that I don't even, it's not even that I'm annoyed with it. It's like, no, you guys are incorrect. By eye test, by analytics, by whatever metric you want to use to measure it, it's like, that's just not accurate. And
No.
it drives me absolutely insane.
No, it's frustrating because we talked about a lot of the analytics coming out of the Dallas series that obviously have that offensive slant, right? Puck possession and the high danger chances that they created. For example, just pointing to a team that was throwing everything they had at Dallas. But when I boiled it down to just these defensive metrics, they still come in at number one in allowing so few chances against. And it's important to make note of just the regular season numbers as well as the consistency and continuity of that going into the playoffs, especially with the additions of players like Drury and Nelson down the middle, who not so different in how we're talking about the way that Florida plays up front, helping their back end. I think that's quietly happening with Colorado, though their identity is a bit different. It's not annoying the other team in the same way that it is for Florida, but it is very bought in under Jared Bednar's system. It's rigid. It's strict. It can be hard over an 82 game season to keep up with that. And it's hard for new players to adapt to it at times. But when they get it, it works very well at limiting possession events against. And so going back to Colorado's decor, you had Taves Makar up top. Everybody knows what they are, and they can be a bit reductive in how they speak about them. But it gets worse. When we go down to that second pair and start talking about Sam Girard and Josh Manson, I think people at least around the league appreciate what Josh Manson is in being this heavy physical player who is hard to play against. And his presence is so valuable that you see the impact when he's not in the lineup. And so because availability has been an issue with Manson, I think it's easy to be a little bit down on him. But when he's in the lineup, especially the playoff version of Manson, it shows me why the team values him so much on that second pair. And alongside him is Girard, who gets knocked for not being as strong defensively because he is undersized. But because of his strength in skating, he is so mobile, agile, that is what he uses to a defensive advantage. And that's why he's emerged as a pretty steady player on the kill who brings a little bit different from what Manson brings on the kill, but together it can work pretty well. And the kill was a knock on the Avs in the playoffs specifically, and something that had ups and downs over the regular season, so they could stand to improve on it on the whole. But I understand the reasoning behind Girard and Manson on the kill and being leaned on for some pretty big minutes there. Girard uses his strength of skating to gap up on guys and take away lanes in just being there positionally. And Manson is able to physically move players from the crease and make that a difficult area for players to get to. And as a result, it's a pretty decent complement. Though when looking at the high danger chances against, I think this is an area the Avs could improve on going into next year and just defending the house better and making it a very dangerous area to get to inside home plate.
Well, and I'm about to make a claim here with nothing to back this up, but it was just, talking about the high danger chances there. I do also wonder, and again, I'm saying this because I had 3 or 4 flash through my brain. I'm like, well, that was a high danger chance they gave up last year. Turnovers. That Manson Girard pair. We even talked about it with Josh Manson just a couple of weeks ago that that pairing in particular was prone to some turnovers coming out of the zone. I do wonder how much of those numbers that you just listed off are a result of that second pairing maybe being a little sloppy with the puck in their own end at times and not necessarily the result of defensive breakdowns all the time. Obviously, you can't say that, the whole number is one or the other.
I actually considered incorporating giveaways, but I found the issue of, but if it didn't result in a goal against and they recovered the puck, do I want to knock against them? Because I do think that's what happened a lot with Manson in particular in these playoffs. He registered on a nightly basis, kind of the highest in giveaways, but he usually recovered in some way. And I'm not saying we should celebrate that. I just didn't want to knock it too much by assigning negative value to it. If the overall possession numbers are still good, the goals, expected goals against is still lower, possession events against still lower, it's going to track for that at least to some degree. So I'll let that number do its work. But this is where I think in remembering these players, people are quick to key in on the mistakes, right? Like even Girard kind of front row to one of the biggest mistakes in the elimination game for the Colorado Avalanche. It then is the quickest memory for people to access. But I think when you go over the numbers more consistently, Girard and Manson are good defensive players for the Avs.
Well, it's and that is, this is the kind of the age old debate with the analytics stuff. And I even see comments in the chat talking about, oh, if they were the best, defense, oh, they'd win all the time. It's like, yeah, the best team in the league loses all the time. Teams that finish first overall don't win the cup hardly ever.
There are some teams in here that have really strong defense that didn't get enough scoring contributions, and that's why they were eliminated.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, and that's the other part of all of this. And again, it's the reason why, and you and I talk about all the time, it's the reason why you have to take the analytics and the eye test and what you see over the course of an entire season, what you've seen over the course of a guy's entire career, right? I'm not going to use the Kibbe example, but you see stuff all the time where guys have breakout years. Who was it Carter Hutton a few years ago who had that unbelievable year in net? Everyone was like, boom, starting goalie. He's a starting goalie. And it's like, what about the previous 10 years that said he's definitely not? You have to take all of that stuff and aggregate it together. And that's where you come up with these types of, lists and assessment. To your point, yeah, you can go to Game 7, third period, and find some pretty, damning highlights if you'd like as counterpoints to some of what we're talking about here. But you could also go through the first 45 minutes of that game and find a bunch of examples of stuff that underscore exactly what we're talking about.
Josh Manson's shorthanded goal.
Right.
No, it doesn't age well given the outcome of the game on the whole, but it's important to have a back end that can be a little bit of everything, right? Like they can be good in their own end consistently, but they can also be a part of putting the puck in the back of the net.
Well, and what does Jared Bednar say to us all the time? I don't judge this team based off the result. He says all the time, we've won a bunch of games we did not deserve to win, and we weren't very good. We've also lost a lot of games where we felt we were the better team and we did deserve to win. So you just I just wanted to call out the point that you were saying, yes, Game 7, Sam Girard, it's a very unfortunate moment that gets kind of stuck in people's brains. This is a conversation based on the whole. If you're picking everyone's worst moments from last year and last postseason, Jacob Slavin's a terrible defender. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love him.
He's not. He's an absolutely elite defender. But yeah, if you're picking their worst moments, all these guys definitely have their lumps over the course of 82 games. And to your point, if all things are equal in terms of games that you play in the playoffs, this Avs D-core is, in my opinion, at the top. But I don't even think there's an argument to be made that they aren't top 3, top 5.
Right. I mean, I have them at my number 2 solidly going into next year. And what I wanted to address too is that kind of outside perspective, people who don't cover the team on a daily basis, they see Malinsky and Burns as that projected third pair. And that's where I think people have at least one question mark. Whether you're familiar within the Avs fan base with Malinsky, maybe that's not your question mark. Or maybe you're familiar with Brent Burns and you recognize that though offensively gifted, he might not improve the bottom line defensively. And I think that gets overinflated just a little bit. Brent Burns obviously had to be able to keep up with the quality of defense that a player like Jacob Slavin plays. Yeah. And I'll get to Carolina in a second because that's a team with such a good defensive structure that they're getting help everywhere in terms of what they are defensively, to include up front, down the middle. Great season from Nico Hischier. But Brent Burns had to hold his own, so to speak. And given his size, though he doesn't use it in a heavy, hulking, and physical way, that is just by merely existing going to take away some shooting and passing lanes if he's positionally where he needs to be. That's going to still improve things defensively. I don't think it takes away what Lindgren brought. He's kind of the key absence, at least for this back end going into next year, was a lot of blocks. That's really the ground that needs to be made up here. And so I think what you get offensively in adding Brent Burns is a step forward, and defensively it's neutral, but it's not a step back. If anything, with the opportunity to add a little bit more in this back end now just being a little bit bigger, that is going to just even take away some lanes to the net when you have a guy like that outside the crease.
Well, and his strength, Brent Burns' strength on the penalty kill is also, in my opinion, a net positive over Ryan. Not that Ryan Lindgren was bad on the PK, but Brent Burns has almost emerged at this point in his career as a PK specialist.
Right.
He's among the elite of the elite. And like you said, that probably is partially a result of that is a long wingspan. That's a long reach.
Yes, a long reach.
Getting in sticks and lanes and, I'm not sure where his shot blocking numbers are at, but like you said, it's a jump forward offensively, probably a net neutral overall defensively, but you have to weigh his PK ability as well.
Absolutely. I think people are quick to view it as a defensive downside in some way because they see the size and expect him to play like Josh Manson. But they are different players, but it's still something that's going to be well represented in the decor that isn't otherwise captured a lot. Which leads me to Malinsky, who to many outside probably aren't familiar with him and just see an inexperienced player that has a question mark. But to me, Malinsky is not a mystery. He's a solid defender. When you look at the hits per 60, blocks per 60, coupled with everything else I was saying, right? Like you still want to evaluate the overall puck possession of the team, the Corsi against, possession events against. Malinsky comes away as a really well-rounded player in each of these categories. And because he is a bit undersized, I think people are quick to point to a lack of physicality being an issue with Malinsky, but he doesn't shy away from it. And similar to how I just described Brent Burns, he's not necessarily going to be this huge physical presence in his own end, but he will not shy away from it. And it's something I don't think he gets enough credit for because he's so much more well-rounded. In describing him as Cale Makar light, I fear he's getting the same treatment as Cale Makar in being reduced to what he's able to do offensively. Malinsky, a heavy shot. But it starts with what he does in his own end. That kind of deception in his starts and stops to evade skaters and break out the puck more efficiently. But then on the flip side, defensively, his willingness to engage, to absorb contact, to protect the puck, he will use physicality in a responsible way, a very strong skater as well, which helps him to be a part of the transition. And then I talk about that shot and his vision in the offensive zone being something that I think we're just beginning to see as his confidence builds.
He is such a heavy shooter. I don't think he gets enough credit for not only is he great at getting pucks through, he shoots the puck hard and he gets it on net. There's not a lot of Sam Malinsky rimming pucks around the glass. He puts pucks on net, and he really this is going to be a weird parallel to draw. He reminds me a little bit of Andre Burakovsky in that, if you give that guy more than 2 seconds to walk into a lane, he's probably going to make you pay for it more often than not. So like I said, I know a weird parallel draw there, but I'm mostly talking when that puck's on his stick in the offensive zone. I really do think he's got some of that Burakovsky where it's just, don't let this kid get a clean look because he's probably going to bury it. And like I said, the only thing I really disagreed with Thomas Hickey on is I would describe Sam. In fact, I have described Sam Malinsky as Cale Makar light, maybe diet light, a couple tiers down, but he clearly models his game after Cale, and he's got the tools to do it on a JV level, however you want to describe that. There's a Cale Makar-esque player who's clearly just no one's in that tier.
And he's still a solid defender as he is right now.
Absolutely.
But as his confidence rises, you see more and more that you like about him, right? Like I'm thinking of the shot from distance, but also his willingness to go for a rebound at the net. It kind of surprised me sometimes at the end of last season when you could clearly see in his game that his confidence had been built up. And so this is me, everyone knows where I stand on Malinsky, but to the outsiders who were quick to dog on this decor, probably because they saw Malinsky and didn't recognize the name, you've been put on notice. This is an NHL defenseman.
And just adding to your point of the way he will follow pucks to the net, what's that a sign of? A player that is confident in his skating and his ability to get back into the play and say, yeah, I can duck below the circles here, trying to generate an opportunity because I'm a good enough skater to get back if I need to, if the play goes that way. And I love the call out on the confidence because this is also a player that I think went through his first full year in pro last year. And it was a battle, I think, for him.
Yeah.
The length of the schedule, the demand, the rigors of playing every other day, more or less. A lot of practice days. It was more than he had ever done. I think we saw him hit that wall, come out of the Four Nations break and really find his stride. And now that's just one more year of experience, one more season of understanding, okay, I got to really take care of my body on these types of days. I got to really watch out when we're going through this type of stretch. I got to make sure that, we see Nathan MacKinnon all the time take maintenance days on practice days. It's because he understands, he's in tune with what's going on with his body. Sam Malinsky's got another year of experience in that. And I think that's going to help lead to the confidence be able to grow. And ultimately the overall level of play being able to just take another step forward.
And this is where, too, like in looking at the bottom of the D core for Florida, a bit older. So there's more experience, but there's less upside. And that's where I get excited about the upside that still exists for a player like Malinsky compared to Jeff Petrie, who we were just talking about with Florida, right? Like Colorado's 1 through 6 is different, though I think it's similarly balanced.
It's got a great mix of age and
with
experience.
Upside. Yes, a good mix of age and experience, because as we go into these other teams that we can speed run, we don't have to go as in depth, to include Dallas, who we can look at more in our Central Division preview.
Yep.
Dallas is a bit of an anomaly for me because they did not fare well in these defensive metric categories and the composite scoring that I was trying to do. And I think a lot of that is being without Heiskanen for a lot of the season. So I want to get that out there off the top. And they received decent goaltending, so I'm not pointing to that being part of this issue. But I think with Dallas, and why they come in on this list is their 1, 2, and 3 are ridiculously good.
Yeah.
It's so high end that it's hard to bet against them then. But they're so heavily leaned on. And you look at the way scoring dried up for Dallas later in the playoff series, that I worry there's too much a heavy reliance on Esa Lindell, Miro Heiskanen, and Thomas Harley, because I have no individual qualms with these players. It's obvious the importance of Miro Heiskanen to the Dallas Stars, and Thomas Harley being such a young player, he ate up huge minutes for the Stars, and his point per game pace was dangerous. One of the most impactful players coming out of the Dallas Avs series for them in that series. So I have a lot of respect for what the Dallas Stars back end is. But outside of that, you've got 2 young players on that third pairing, projected at least, in Bichelle and Lundqvist. And they were already talking about moving on from Lyubushkin. So I don't think that this is quite the key pivotal piece. They lose Cody Ceci, so they lose experience, right? Like Cody Ceci wasn't a difference maker, so to speak, but he represented experience that they now have a lot less of. It's a very young, inexperienced backhand outside of their top 3 that I just need to see a full season with Miro Heiskanen in the lineup to better evaluate it, because their regular season numbers didn't fare very well. And even by the end of the playoffs, defensively, didn't fare very well.
Yeah. Well, and again, what I like so much about the Avs group is the 1 through 6, and especially in knowing the way that Jared Bednar will deploy these guys over the course of the season, is that it's not going to be Makar Taves, Gerard Manson, Malinsky, Burns. You are going to see a combination of these guys, and I think you have 6 guys that complement each other really well, and that are going to be able to play kind of up and down with that group. So I really do. Like I said, for me, I've got Colorado at 1, not just because I like their 1 through 6, but I think it's because they are the engine that makes this Avs team go. As we're, a team like LA, very strong defensively by the metrics. That's a team I think benefits from, the whole team. We're coached this way. We play this way. The Avs D-core is, they are able to play the way that they are able to, because the D-core is so effective at stopping chances, turning them up ice, turning them into offense. And like you said, limiting shots and chances against. More time pucks on your stick, the less time your opponents have it.
I think what's tough too about this comment that we would use advanced metrics to justify the defense is these are real numbers, though, of possession events against, goals against, that are all being factored into the eye test as well. Like what we know to be true about Carolina, a team that I haven't mentioned yet and was not in Thomas Hickey's original list, is a team that deserves a shout out. And it's a lot of team defense that is going to capture that. But Leon Bichelle, being a young and experienced player, cost the Dallas Stars. I'm not making that up, and I have no stat for that. I watched the penalty and the goal against that followed in the Western Conference Final.
Yeah.
I don't need a stat for that, And I watched, too, as the high danger chances side by side, Colorado allowed fewer in the series. you could just see that. And you could see then the strength of play in Ottinger in that series too, and how much that became the separator at the end of the day of what was a really close series. And so, look, I love advanced analytics, but I also watch hockey.
Well, I'll say in their argument included the word etc. when listing teams. So who really cares? Anything else on this back end?
Not Colorado specifically. These other names in the list, Washington and Montreal. Look, we didn't even talk about the offensive impact. If we're adding that into this, obviously Colorado has a leg up on some of the competition. Washington would be excluded in that case. I don't think they're defensively strong enough to justify being there. And I think that they don't provide enough offense to justify being there, though a good regular season team. And I don't want to take away from that. Jacob Chikrin, a great defenseman. Washington doesn't belong in this list for me. Montreal, the offensive impact, you could have my attention there. But past that, defensively, they struggled.
Still such a young group, too.
Great goaltending, steady goaltending, but they struggled a bit defensively. So you would have me sooner talk about Carolina and that defense, that back end. And from there, it gets a little weird for me. So I haven't locked in who my 5 would be, but it would probably be somebody else.
Yeah. We are going to finish up our division previews on Friday. We're going to put a bow on the Pacific Division, and then we'll go through the Central. And then next week, we are going to start moving into a little bit of how do all these guys stack up? Call it a prediction. We might start getting into by next week where we think some of these teams will finish based on a lot of the stuff that we've spent the last couple of weeks talking about. Any final thoughts, Megan, before we move to the next part of our show? No.
Throw some respect on the Colorado Avalanche's back end.
I agree. And their defense, too. Ha!
You are sick.
Ha! All right. 30 years in Colorado. Megan, it is so funny. Like, I remember when the Florida Panthers, the Nashville Predators, and Minnesota Wild and Columbus Blue Jackets were all coming into the league. And I remember those feeling like such new teams. Wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. The Avs are only a couple of years older than that. The Avs coming to the league in 95, 96. And boy, oh boy, have they packed a lot of history into the last 30 years. You and I have been lucky. We've been able to be a part of the last, I'm going on my 9th season here. You're going into your 5th. And so, we've been able to be part of some of this. And you and I we each put our lists together here. It was my fault. It was all my fault. We were even late starting the show today because I just could not make up my mind on how I wanted us to break these lists down. So what Megan and I ended up coming up with was our top 10 moments over the last 30 years for the Colorado Avalanche. I changed it up on Megan so much she didn't even have time to put hers into order. So we've got Megan's in no specific order. We've got mine. This is going to be kind of a fun way to wind down the show a bit here. John, my laptop died, so could you throw up those lists for us? Right there, Jesse's and Megan's list. Yep, we can start with Jesse's list. So here's my top 10 moments for the Colorado Avalanche in the last 30 years. Number 1, Joe Sakic handing the cup to Ray Bourque. I'm going to talk more about this after we show your list. The Avs winning Game 6 in Tampa. Yui Krupp scoring the OT winner for not only the Avs' first Stanley Cup, but the first ever professional championship in Colorado sports history. Game 82, win and get in. Game 82 from, I believe that was 17-18. Nazem Kadri's hat trick against the Blues, the hate trick, as Megan referred to it right before. I hadn't heard that. I absolutely loved it. Cale Makar's first goal coming in the playoffs against his childhood team, the Calgary Flames. Gabe Landeskog returning to the lineup. The Avs' 5-goal comeback against the Florida Panthers in 1999. Of course, that inaugural game played at McNichols Arena against the Detroit Red Wings. And then the Avs acquiring Patrick Waugh, and this is another one that I need to talk about in a moment. Let's see Megan's list. In no specific order.
Perfect.
My fault. She does have the Yui Krupp OT winner. No more rats. And that's really a 96 Cup Finals, several moments into one great moment and one excellent quote. Avs winning Game 6 in Tampa, Gabe Landeskog returning, Sakic handing the cup to Ray Bourque. Cale Makar's debut, I stopped at just his goal, but his debut in general was
The whole
special.
thing.
The whole thing. Darren Helm's Game 6 winner, absolutely love it. The Mac trick, which was the promiscuous game from just recently. Landeskoging, the start of Landeskoging and the flu game, and then Nathan McKinnon being drafted number 1 overall, which does tie in with my number 10 of the Avs acquiring Patrick Waugh. I want to start by talking about one of these moments. It's the Sakic to Bourque cup handoff moment. Where are you on statues? Are you pro statue or anti statue?
I'm cool with statues.
Okay.
I don't need one.
Yeah,
Like, I don't need to see one. You know what? I probably won't go see a statue,
totally.
but I'm glad they exist for other people.
For other people's enjoyment.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And I feel if there was any one statue you were going to do for the Avs,
Yes.
it's Sakic handing the cup to Bourque. I know Bourque having his number retired is slightly controversial around Avs fans because he was here for such a short amount of time. It is of my opinion that this moment, Joe Sakic passing that cup to Ray Bourque, is not only the most iconic single moment in Avs history, I think it is a top 5 iconic moment in league history for me. And I think that if you were going to do a statue, I'm with you. I don't need statues for anything. But if you were going to do one out front of Ball Arena, I think it's that moment of Sakic handing the cup to Bourque.
And if it was right there at Ball Arena, I would go see it.
She would go see it.
I would go see it. Yeah. I mean, this trade marked a turning point in that season. Patrick Waugh demanded it more or less, like, hey, I need some support. And it came in the form of Ray Bourque and culminated in an incredible moment that would warrant a statue for sure.
Well, and it's just it's not even necessarily them winning that Stanley Cup. It's literally that moment for me where, like, every year the NHL does a Stanley Cup playoffs like promo. That moment is in it every year. It's one of the NHL's all-time iconic moments, and I don't know if we talk about that enough in Avs circles. To me, it's up there with the Bobby Orr, flying goal. It's that iconic.
Agree.
Let's talk about Landeskoging.
Aww.
And the flu game, because you had said when we were going through, you were like, I didn't know if that was, and I said, no, keep it, because I want to make an argument for it. Gabe Landeskog played one season without being the captain of the Colorado Avalanche. When that season came to an end, Milan Hajduk went to the coaching and the management and said, this guy is the guy that's going to lead this franchise forward. And I think that there's so much of what Gabe did in that first season showing who he was in terms of character and player and leader. And I think there's so much that you could boil down to that one moment as a 19-year-old kid, sick as hell with the flu, and pulls himself together enough to get into the game and scores the overtime winner as a rookie. I think that is probably one of those, like I'd love to talk to Milan Hajduk about that goal in that moment. And like, was that a moment for you where you knew this guy is the future leader of this franchise type thing?
I think I view it similarly, and why I ultimately talked myself into keeping it in the end too, before even presenting it to you. And it's because of what it represented in Landeskog and a turning point in culture too. Like, you had a core that there was locker room turmoil and a question of who's playing for the name on the front versus the name on the back, right?
Yep.
And Landeskog playing through the flu like that to get the OT winner, I think represented why he was the right choice, not only as a leader, but the direction that this team needed to go. And it meant a change of guard, a change of core. And I think that Landeskog represents what the team needed to be. And it's kind of exemplified in this game.
No, I 100% agree. And that's why I do think that, when in 10 years, 15 years, when we look back on all this, and I love what you just said, because it was Milan Hajduk giving the captaincy to Gabe Landeskog, and it was that, like, okay, the old legacy glory days are done. This is a new core. It's new leadership and going in a new direction. And Gabe Landeskog has said this. He was too young to be captain, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many players in the league that would say there's a better leader in the NHL than Gabe Landeskog. And he turned out to obviously be such the right choice in that moment.
Yeah.
We had to have the Yui Krupp OT goal up there. Triple overtime. Like that, that's an iconic moment. I originally had the same last one that you did, Nathan MacKinnon going 1 overall. I changed mine to Patrick Waugh being acquired because aren't those really tied together but separated by whatever, 15 years? If you never acquire Patrick Waugh, you probably never bring him back as coach/GM, and you probably end up talking about Seth Jones and not Nathan MacKinnon.
Don't get me wrong, Seth Jones on the Florida Panthers just was talking about how great that backhand is with the addition of him. But my goodness, how different would the Avs be up front if they didn't have a Nathan MacKinnon? It wouldn't matter very much if the Avs did have Seth Jones in this hypothetical, but they didn't have MacKinnon up top. We'd be looking at an entirely different team here.
100%. Will you throw one of those lists back up, John? Just so I can refresh my mem here.
I look back at the way Avs were developing defensemen around the time MacKinnon was drafted, and I felt such a fear that even if it was Jones, this would not be the right place for his development.
Yes.
And I feel that to this day, too, that MacKinnon was obviously the right choice in hindsight, but that was the bigger fear, too. It's like we see the version of Seth Jones that exists today, still a really good player, but I think expected to be a franchise-changing player in the Blackhawks organization a little bit, has had trouble amounting to that given some of their struggles contextually. But anyways,
100%.
All that to say, MacKinnon was the right choice.
Yes.
This was very important.
Were you at game 82 by any chance?
I don't think so.
I just remember that. So this game 82 is the 82nd game of the season following the 48-point season. It was Jared Bednar's first year. They have the historically bad season. 1 year later, they find themselves in the last game of the season and playing against the Blues, and whichever team won the game, the Avs had to win in regulation, was punching their ticket to the playoffs. And I just remember that it felt like a game 7, and there was this emotion in the building and you could feel it from the fans. Sam Girard scored in that game, and I don't think I've ever seen him more fired up for a goal. You could feel the pride from not only the players, coaches, but also the fans in that, like, everyone, we were the punchline of every joke last year. And here we are with a chance to get into the playoffs 365 days later. And I just remember the energy in the building that night being different that to this day, any other game that I've ever been to. There was such a, like I said, just the Avs been bad for almost a decade. They were the laughing stock of the league the year before. And there was this, like, look at us now mentality. And it was, again, another kind of defining moment for the team and this core. And I just remember that being a really special game in a different way. 2 moments we have on this list come from from round 2 of the 2022 series. And that's the Nazem Kadri hate trick and the Darren Helm game winner with what it ended up being 5.6 left. Because I believe it was 3.5 initially. And then I will never forget when they took it back to 5.6. I was like, that might be enough time. That might be enough time for someone to do something. It was this series when I said they are winning a Stanley Cup. You don't go through those types of moments and then not eventually get there. The Nazem Kadri stuff, like, I look back on that now and, like, I cannot believe that even happened.
It's absurd.
Absurd is a great word.
I was talking about, the silliness of Gallant's coaching introduction video. Like, the league needs more of this. This was such a weird thing that has no place in this league. Just the hate that surrounded this on ice moment, and then the water bottle off the ice exacerbated it. It just was so bizarre. I like hockey being weird. That is not good.
Well, it was so bizarre. It was so not what anybody wants to see. And for Nazem Kadri to handle it the way he did, to just keep his head down, go about his business, show up and go to work. And, he definitely sellied hard on a couple of those goals, but not anywhere near as over the top as I think the average person would have been given everything that he was going through.
Right.
And again, it was just another, there is nothing that can stop this team type moment. And then for that series to feel like it was starting to get away from them there for a second, and then the heroics of Darren Helm. What do you remember about that goal?
I remember Eric Johnson protecting the puck along the wall to bring it up ice in the first place. And I remember thinking too how poetic it is that it's everybody, all hands on deck, is contributing to this playoff run. It's not just the Nathan McKinnons who have ridiculous playoff performances and it still results in a loss. Right. It's everybody. And I think that's how I kind of knew they can do it. They have the depth.
I remember watching that in slow motion. I was sitting next to shout out to our guy D-Mac. I was sitting next to D-Mac and Cale Makar standing behind the net with just over 10 seconds left. And he goes, there's time. And then he moved it to Eric Johnson, and D-Mac just kept repeating as they're moving, there's still time. There's still time. And he just kind of kept getting progressively louder as the puck got over the red line and then over the blue line. And then as Darren Helm's like, there's still time. There's still time. And the sound in that building when the puck went in was something that has always stuck with me. Cause Avs fans remember that as this great triumphant moment. For Blues fans, it was the ultimate let the air out of the building.
Yeah.
They felt like we're about to come back, win overtime, force a game 7, and we're moving on here. And it was just in an instant gone. And that was also one of those, as soon as it happened, I was like, yeah, this is an all-time series for the Avs.
Yeah.
An all-time series for the Avs.
It was special.
Let's get one last look at him here. Any final thoughts? You have to have the inaugural game in there. We're not sitting here without the inaugural game. The 5-goal comeback versus the Florida Panthers. That's the Peter Forsberg natural hat trick game. And then I guess Gabe Landeskog coming back. You and I have been very lucky to be a part of several very loud moments, electric moments inside a Ball Arena. That one is right up there at the very tippy top. And most of my moments like that are the result of a goal or something like that. No, this was sustained 30 seconds, an ovation at that, roof rattling level.
Yeah. Landy chants all throughout the game. Just really special. And I mean, I count the buildup with the conditioning stint
100%.
And the atmosphere at Blue Arena as part of what makes this overall moment so special. All of it was electric. The support from the globe, right? The number of people who tuned in to watch that stream for the conditioning stint was very heartwarming.
That's a great call out. I'm glad you said that, because it was the buildup, the culmination of everything. And yeah, that was a special moment. And it was a special moment at Blue Arena because of how intimate of a venue that is and how loud 5,000 people got.
Yes.
That then, whatever that was, a week, 2 weeks later, when we get to see that play out at Ball Arena in the Stanley Cup playoffs, you have the, him and Mikko Rantanen lining up next to each other moment. It was definitely another one of those. It's yep, never forget that.
It says a lot about a person to have so many people rooting for you, so many strangers rooting from you from every corner of the world.
Well, I remember that was something I talked about. AJ Oscarson from Fresh Tape Media, who did the documentary. I remember talking to him about at Blue Arena that weekend, him just saying like, there's a lot of athletes who would go, who could go through something like this, and it wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting or as captivating, whatever. It's who Gabe is,
right?
The respect he commands and the way he goes about just every day that makes him so special and who he is and all that stuff. And yeah, like you said, that the payoff of all that says a lot about who Gabe Landeskog is. 30. What do you think of the anniversary logo?
When I saw it for the first time, I thought it was a screen grab of something in motion, and so it just kind of looked a little wobbly to me, even though it was a static image. And anyways, I don't know, it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I same. I don't know.
It's inoffensive, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh my gosh, who approved this? It's just like, I don't know.
I like it better than the 25 year. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
It was 25 and it just had like the random swoosh just like sticking halfway out of it. And it just looked very like afterthought. Like, oh shit, this 25 doesn't really represent the Avs. Throw the swoosh in.
I have so many things in my life to be worried about. It's hard for me to have many thoughts about the logo because you know what it reminds me of too is it reminds me of a Super Bowl logo. Is what?
Oh yeah,
and that's why maybe it just feels a little off to me.
Well, you know what it reminds me of? It looks very military to me, with like because like they have the X at the front, but then to the right it's just like the little like triangle, and it looks like ranking patches to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
And like they've got the Stanley Cup years written at the bottom of the X's. And like at first I was like, oh, one for each decade. Then I was like, no, it's not one in each decade. And then I thought, well, maybe is this supposed to look like a Stanley Cup? Like if you turned it sideways, but not really.
It looks like it should be at the center of a football.
Yeah, I totally see it. I totally see it. It's not bad, but the logo will be on jerseys this year in the form of a patch. I'm gonna be curious to see what they do. If they decide to go with no sponsor, or if they load it up the way that other teams do, or do you maybe replace one of the C's on the shoulder with the 30th anniversary patch for this year?
I don't think I want it that big.
Sticker on the helmet, maybe.
Yeah.
Let's go helmet
Love
sticker.
that.
Yeah. And then I'm also assuming it will be the center ice logo for this year.
Perfect. I can't wait.
That's it. That's all we got. I think we're hour 12. We're getting better.
Yeah.
Better at
Sorry, John.
Sorry, John. It is on days when John is. We just love hanging out with John so much.
Yeah.
We don't ever want to go.
We love numbers. We love hockey. We love lists.
We love lists. I'm Jesse. She's Megan. Got John behind the glass today. We'll be back at it on Friday. Like I said, wrapping up those division previews, and we are moving on to the Central. So we'll be talking Avs. We'll be talking Stars. We'll be talking Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks. And we will see if they can finally stop. Hold on. I'm getting booed by Chloe.
Oh, is it because you didn't believe in her abilities to make me ride a dragon?
She made a graphic about the defense, and she said, say something about the graphic I just made. So head to Gorilla Sports socials and find the graphic Chloe just made. I'm sure it's excellent. And I do want to give a quick plug to what you've got going on this weekend, Megan. That is Girls in the Game on Saturday. Gorilla Sports will be there with a full booth and being driven by our fantastic women here. We're just so excited to be part of it. Shout out Romy Bean.
I'm so excited. This is Romy's second year doing this event, and her passion for why she's doing it comes through so much. She's such a lovely person to listen to. There's going to be a panel just to get some insight into working in sports. I'll be speaking on that panel too around 11. So if you don't want to hear me, avoid this event at 11.
Nah.
No, but I think it's 9 to 1, free to attend. I just encourage everyone to sign up. So it's easy entry once you do arrive. And it's obviously geared towards women who are interested in working in sports and helping to show them all the possible opportunities that exist to work in sports beyond just being on camera. And I think that's so valuable for women to see. I was thinking about that today. Like, there is a role for women who want to work in stats and analytics out there. So if you want to work in sports in any capacity, it's a worthwhile networking event. And you don't have to be a woman.
Yeah.
Anybody interested in working in sports can attend. It's all age groups too. Like, we initially imagined it being very young women, like still school age, but we had college students and some people very freshly post-college. And so really, if you just want to work in sports, be there and talk to some of the lovely women at Guerrilla Sports.
Yes, we will have a booth. I was just talking with Chloe this morning about making sure that we collect up, any swag and all that stuff that we got for all that. But really, that's a really fun event. And a big shout out to Romy and CBS for extending the invite to Guerrillas. It'll be our first year participating. And yeah, we had some kick-ass women that work here, and I'm excited for you guys to get to go show everyone how fucking awesome you are. Damn, I made it through the whole show.
I was gonna say, have we really not cursed once? And it just kind of.
I made it through the whole show. We're gonna have dollar bills, y'all, later.
Yeah, this was the quick version.
Quick solution. But first contributions to the swear jar too. Woo, 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 woo. All right, that's gonna do it. Come see Megan speaking on the panel at Girls in the Game this Saturday at 11. We'll be back Friday to bug you and remind you about it anyways. But if you can't make it in time for that, just stop by and stop at the Guerrilla Sports booth at Girls in the Game on Saturday. It's going to be an awesome event. I'm really excited that Guerrilla Sports take part this year. That's going to do it. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. John behind the glass. We will talk to you guys on Friday. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.